Hello to everyone out there. I'm Poetic Heretic, and today we will be looking at the Moon card. As always, if you're watching when this is not live, you may fast forward until 5 minutes in, where we will begin with the main part of the material. And in the meantime, I shall complete the preparations for the subsequent engagement with all of this information in Revelations. So I would like to know right now, how do we sound? Good. I'm gonna charge this. Lighting is really weird today. Step 1 complete. Oh, it tried to give me an ad on my own video. Suppose that's a good sign. Okay, let's get this shared to Twitter. Maybe that tweet will draw some people in. All right, well, it won't be too much longer now. Oh, this will be an interesting stream, I must say. Then again, well, no more interesting than other tarot streams have been so far, tarot card analysis streams. We've had some very interesting ones indeed. So I'm going to see if I can just sort of get some materials ready here in the interim before we officially begin. One minute away. Okay, that's clearly not going to work. Guess we'll just have to use a different app. So be it. All right, soon we'll begin. No one's here yet, but that's okay. We shall see what happens as we proceed. Okay, I see we are now about 5 minutes in, so let us officially begin. Again, I'm Poetic Heretic, and today we are looking at the Moon card, both the Rider-Waite and the Crowley Thoth versions, as usual, of course. Should be very interesting. Of course, we'll be looking at surfacey meanings, very basic meanings, and then we'll be diving into the more esoteric meanings, the deepest meanings we can possibly find, and kind of everything in between, so that hopefully everyone who is interested in tarot can get something out of this live stream. Now, just a little disclaimer right off the start, a little forewarning that's not, I guess, one of my usual disclaimers, but I am running on almost no sleep currently, and so this stream, I might be a little extra crazy at times because I might lose touch with reality somewhat and just go insane from how tired I am. I'm kidding. I'm exaggerating. I'm being sarcastic, but I am running on like half an hour of sleep because I don't know, my life's just crazy like that. So if I seem a little out of it at times, that's why. But anyway, I don't care. I'm here. The show must go on. We're going to do this no matter what. So, other than that, I'll make my usual preliminary remarks where I say, I am not a part of any occult order or anything like that. I'm coming into all of this from a highly individualistic perspective. I reserve the right to have my own opinion about these cards. Furthermore, though, this is not my sitting here telling anyone what to believe. This is all just like my perspective, and you should make up your own mind. And ideally, we will throughout the stream have a discussion about these subjects and what I might think about them versus what other people might think about them, and that sort of thing. And I'm doing this because it's a lot of fun. It's part of my highest excitement, and it's, studying the tarot is something that can really, really help you on your spiritual journey and purify your vibration. I mean, the benefits really continue to surprise me to this day. So there's that. Hopefully my bracelet's not coming loose. Let's see what else. Just to give an overview of what this will look like, I will start out giving my summary of the card, my general knowledge of the card, like a summary of my knowledge of the card. Then, as usual, we'll look up additional interpretations and I'll give my take on those, and we'll proceed from there. We'll start with mainly the Rider-Waite version, but eventually we will look specifically at the Crowley Thoth version because, again, it has to be said, the Thoth deck is probably the best tarot deck in existence when it comes to like the accuracy of the symbols and all that kind of stuff. Just best all around, basically. Maybe not quite perfect, or maybe it is perfect, I don't know, but definitely the best in my opinion, with the Rider-Waite as a second best. So we'll be doing that, and of course I'll be taking any comments or questions on the material, and hopefully we can have an educational discussion. If anyone tries to come in and provide anything other than educational or intellectual remarks, unless it's all in good humor and fun like a lot of my regular viewers do. If anyone tries to cause any trouble, well, you guys already know how that tends to go with me. So but hopefully it's a nice, peaceful, easygoing stream, as easygoing as mine end up ever being anyway. But so with all of that said, let us begin. So here we are, card 18 of the Major Arcana, the Moon card. Definitely, I'll just say right off the bat, one of the cards that, like, from the start, when I first started studying tarot nearly 3 years ago, really drew me in. I felt drawn to this card more than many others for some reason. It's a very mysterious card, of course, being ruled by Neptune, the planet of all things mysterious, and we'll get more into that. I'm not going to talk a whole lot right now about what it means in terms of one's spiritual journey through life, because my knowledge on that for this card is relatively limited. However, I can take a guess, essentially. If I had to guess, I would say, because of everything else I've come to know about this card, that it's It's going to talk about exploring the unconscious. It's going to talk about probably, I would guess, perhaps the last transformation of what is deep within oneself, like deep in the subconscious or unconscious realms. I know that the symbol of this, whatever that is, this sea creature coming out of the water is supposed to represent like some of the horrors of the subconscious mind. And so we'll probably see that. It's going to talk about an aspect of the journey where you probably can't see the outcome, can't see how it's all going to turn out, but you have to just sort of trust the light of the moon. You can't see everything. You can only see what is illuminated by the moon, which is very limited. But again, we'll get much deeper into that. And I'm still kind of speculating because, these last, I don't know how or why I developed this way with my own study of the tarot, but these last few cards of the major arcana, I actually don't know a whole lot about when it comes to the spiritual journey through life. And so, like I've said before, this is probably another thing I should have said earlier. I consider myself a student of these subjects just as much as a teacher of them. I don't know everything there is to know. I'm not even close to that sort of knowledge about these cards. Like, I'm learning all kinds of things with these streams. So keep that in mind. But so we'll get deeper into that. As for some of the other things we can say about this card, well, first of all, it is ruled by the sign of Pisces and the planet Neptune. And Neptune rules a number of things, including various kinds of intoxicating substances. And of course, dreams, imagination, spirituality, the non-physical realms, supernatural kinds of things, all of this is going to be connected to the moon card because of the Neptune rulership. Now, Neptune traditionally has been thought of as quite the negative planet, but of course that's not exactly accurate by modern astrological standpoints, but that was mainly because it talks a lot about confusion and delusion, insanity, perhaps even all these sorts of things. It's all about that which is nebulous. And so that any kind of confusion or hiding the truth or lack of clarity, you're going to have Neptune, fog and mist and stuff like that is ruled by Neptune. But on the positive side, of course, you have it ruling again things like imagination, creativity, the non-physical realms, the sense of all is one, the whole, like, Neptune is probably the most spiritual planet because it's directly tied to this idea of we are all one and stuff like that, as opposed mainly to Saturn, which is all about division, all about individuality. And it's very interesting. I will say this just briefly as an aside. It's very interesting when you have these aspects harmonized in astrology, as we just did recently, and it's still basically going on right now. Saturn forming a supportive sextile to Neptune. I think it was the last day of January of this year, 2019, so January 31st. When you have Saturn, the planet of make it real, sextiling Neptune, the planet of dreams and imaginations, it's literally saying it becomes easy to make the dream real. And so, but that's just kind of an aside. Again, this card is all about that Neptune energy and ruled by the sign of Pisces, psychic, intuitive, subjective, emotional, perceptive, service-oriented, sacrificial, that sort of thing, Pisces energy is very interesting. It's, on the one hand, it can be very confused, and like if there's a planet in Pisces, that planet's generally going to be like, where am I? What am I doing? Where the hell am I? I don't even know what's going on. But on the other hand, it is extremely creative. Pisces is extremely creative, imaginative, like psychic, intuitive energy. So as with all signs, there's positives and negatives. So all of that is going to play into this card, just like we have with all the other cards. So another thing we can look at, of course, is it being card 18. I'm not going to get too deep into speculating about the numerology, but of course, 18, 1 plus 8 is 9. That's going to tie it to the Hermit card in ways which, if memory serves correctly, the Hermit card occupies the path between two Sephirah on the Tree of Life, one of which is ruled by the moon, I think. But perhaps we can confirm that later. But there is a link. I know I found it before. I just can't remember for sure what it is, but I think it's the Tree of Life between 9s and the moon. And not just because it's card 18, 1 plus 8 equals 9, but because of other reasons as well, like the Tree of Life. So there's that. Of course, even with it being a 1 and an 8, relating it theoretically then to the Magician or Magus card and the, in the Rider-Waite, the Strength card, which is known as the Lust card in the Thoth deck, but in that deck it's known as, or it's number 11. And then in the Thoth deck, card number 8 is Adjustment, which in the Rider-Waite is known as Justice. Did you follow all of that? I don't blame you if you didn't, but we'll perhaps get deeper into that later if it ends up being relevant. I'm sure we'll come across it. So there's that information. Let's see what else about this card. Well, just looking at some of the symbolism, and obviously we'll get more into that, but the water here obviously is talking about the subconscious or the unconscious and emotion as well. Water is a huge symbol of that in the tarot and just, I guess, astrology and these sorts of things in general, these esoteric disciplines in general. As I mentioned earlier, this creature coming out of the water, from what I have read, is supposed to represent the horrors of the subconscious mind. We have the two pillars. Oh, by the way, hi Lumen. I meant to say hi to you earlier. Hello Lumen, welcome to the stream. I'm getting so wrapped up. I'm highly sleep deprived today. What else is new? But we have the two pillars here, which of course are going to harken back to like the High Priestess card and other cards. That's very interesting. We'll look more into that. The moon itself is shown in separate phases, right? Like you can see the crescent moon, then kind of a half moon, then the full moon, showing the idea of changeability. And actually, let's talk about that for a moment. Like just the moon in general, not just the moon card, but the moon in general, like in astrology, it's all about changes, right? And speaking of the High Priestess, we can look at the High Priestess card being ruled by the moon, being a lunar card, and the idea of the constancy of change is connected to that card as well. And so we'll probably come across that in some way, shape, or form in this card. At least I would think that we should. Because the moon, of course, for those who are not familiar with astrology, the moon is the fastest moving object that we track in astrology, fastest moving object in the sky. Spends only a couple of days in each sign. Of course, it goes around every approximately 28 days. That's where we get the word month, is from the word moon. A month is really like a month, perhaps you could say. What else did I want to say about that? So the moon talks about change and whatnot, and the constancy of change. It talks about the subconscious again as well. It talks about our mood. The moon is our mood. All these moon words. It's very funny. Even the word Monday, the day of the week Monday, is really Moon Day, ruled by the moon, as is every day of the week has a planetary rulership. Let's see, anything else? Yeah, the moon, it's funny because, the moon is our mood, and they talk about how the moon, literally, like the literal physical moon, influences the tides of our planet Earth. And what do we know about our bodies? But that they are, I think, nearly 70% water. It's weird. I hear differing figures on this, but our physical bodies are like nearly 70% water. And so the moon does indeed influence our moods, and again, what is water always symbolizing in tarot and astrology and stuff like that? Emotion. But see, I'm going to go a step further here right now than I really hear almost any other person who talks about this stuff go. And I'm going to submit to all of you watching right now and anyone who watches when this is not live that you can control your mood. Maybe not completely, but you can exercise great control over your mood through deliberate focus. And you don't have to be well, you could say this maybe really about anything in astrology ultimately, is that you aren't controlled by the planets or whatever. They're just representatives of energy. They're just symbolic of energy. You are the one who decides with your free will what you do with the energy. So hopefully we can talk more about that at some point. See, the moon does a number on me every month, emotion-wise. Yes, I can understand that. Yeah. Anytime, especially it seems like when the moon is in Aries and squares all of my Capricorn activity, I often feel that. And of course, because my brain doesn't want to work right now, I need to look at the actual chart. I guess I would also say that about Libra, except it doesn't seem to really happen as much in Libra, probably because Libra is such a sweet, easygoing sign, and I'm a Libra rising. That might help. The Earth is 70% water as well, and the moon follow a woman's cycle. Yes, that's right. That's right. It's good points. Some women's cycle are in sync with the full moon, babies being born. Yeah, interesting stuff. And of course, again, for anyone who's not familiar with astrology, when we have a new moon, that symbolizes a new energetic cycle. And you can literally, at least from what I've heard, and I don't know, theoretically, it makes sense to me. You can literally do like rituals, like symbolic rituals at the time of the new moon to sort of catch the wave of that energy to help you manifest things you want to manifest. And then when the moon reaches the full moon, that represents a peak in the energy. And that's when things become the most intense. And it's funny because let's see. I don't know if this person believed in astrology or not, but I remember years ago hearing on this radio show, this guy who he wasn't like, the radio show wasn't his main job or whatever. That was just like a hobby thing. He worked in a call center, and he was like, yeah, every time there's a full moon, he's like, I believe that the full moon brings intensity. And he's like, because every time there's a full moon, the customers I get or the people that call or whatever are so much crazier or whatever. And I thought, isn't that interesting? But yeah, and of course, we have legends of like werewolves and stuff like that rising at the time of the full moon. It's probably because what the full moon is astrologically, again, probably most of you already know this, but for anyone who doesn't, is simply when the moon opposes the sun. It's a moon-sun opposition. The moon represents our emotion, subconscious, feminine side. The sun essentially represents our ego, conscious mind, masculine side. And so what is there when there's an opposition? Well, there's disharmony, or at least the potential for disharmony, and oppositions play themselves out, I guess, most frequently in relationships, to the best of my understanding. And so that's why during the full moon, tensions tend to be on high, because there's internal conflict that, as always, manifests, or usually tends to manifest, but I'd say especially during oppositions, as external conflict. So I hope that makes sense. Let me think what else. Hang on. Normally I ask Google for questions, but my phone's charging right now. So let's ask Alexa for a change about the water thing. Let's see. How do we even do this? Normally I ask Google. I'm used to that. Sorry, Alexa. I love you too. How much of the human body is water?
65%.
Huh. Okay. There you go. I hope Alexa's voice isn't copyrighted or anything, because that would be unfortunate. copyright that, could they? I hope not. Jeez. I would feel cheated, but anyway, let's just continue. So that's what we have there. Now, of course, the Thoth version of the card we'll be diving into later. I'm still relatively new to the Thoth deck, and so I'm not going to even attempt to dissect the symbolism of it, but we will get deep into it, of course, just sort of showing it here for now so you can get a look at it. And what I do want to say real quick, like, let me just, because, you know, you could be going to anyone for information on like the moon, either in astrology or the moon card or both, as we are kind of looking at here. Well, mainly the moon card, but the astrology ties into. But here I am Poetic Heretic delivering this information, and it's not just tarot and astrology that I study. I study other kinds of spirituality as well. And so I have to say, I feel compelled to include this information. Like I was saying earlier, it is my strong thesis that you can control your mood, that you have at least a huge amount of leeway to control your mood, a huge amount of potential to control your mood. And it's really worth doing. Now, this gets into so many things, and well, let me just try to sum this up without misleading anyone unintentionally. Geez. So one of the best ways to control your mood, essentially, is when you awaken first thing in the morning. The way you start your day determines the kind of momentum you generate in that day. And so, as I've said many times before in these live streams, one of my favorite things to do when I first start my day is to make a list of positive aspects, to sit down and write out a list of positive aspects about whatever subject seems ideal at that time, person, place, thing, experience, whatever. And then that momentum carries into the day. Now, you can also do other things, of course. I mean, on almost every single day that I live stream these days, I have a workout first thing. That's my activity to initiate positive momentum. And that also is highly effective. Physical activity, generally speaking, will raise your vibration. Maybe there's some exceptions to that if you're, I don't know, really stressed about it or something. But generally speaking, exercise, there's a reason they say it's so healthy for you. It raises your vibration. Doing it first thing in the day is highly, highly, highly advantageous. Probably the best time you could possibly work out, in my opinion, at this point. Because I'm not just aware of the physical advantages, I'm aware of the vibrational, emotional advantages as well. So I want to really recommend that to people, as we're looking at the moon card that talks so much about our mood. Remember, you create your own reality. You're not controlled by astrology or tarot or anything. Well, tarot wouldn't even make sense to say that, but like, you're not controlled by where the planets are. The planets just symbolize the state of the energy that you have to work with. Sometimes the energy is easier to work with. Sometimes it is harder to work with. Other times it's anything in between, all kinds of, anything in between two extremes, one being essentially very easy to work with, another very, very, very difficult to work with. But ultimately, you're the one piloting the ship. And so I never ever want to give people the idea in my streams and the work that I do, or whatever you want to call this, that just because we're talking about tarot and astrology, that we're somehow bound to fate, because I don't believe in that. I mean, maybe some things are predestined. I can entertain that idea at least, but I'd say by and large, at least for all intents and purposes, you create your own reality. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So with all of that said, let's dive into our first source here. Remember, if you guys have any comments or questions on this stuff, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer. So I'm just going to take a quick look at things while I open up the first source material here that we will be analyzing. Oh, it's open already. Okay, good. But yeah, we're going to mainly be looking at the Rider-Waite version of the card first. All this stuff will basically, for the most part at least, apply to the Thoth version as well. And then we will be looking specifically at the Thoth version, possibly before the end of this stream, or we might need to wait till later. It really just depends on how much stuff we get into. That's the thing. I'm not sure with the Moon card if this is likely to be a short or an average length stream, or if it's going to turn into another really long one. I really have no idea what all we're going to get into, but we shall see. Can you read your horoscope and manifest different results? Basically, yeah. Especially if you're just reading like regular horoscopes, like for your sun sign, those are those aren't necessarily going to be the most accurate because they're not taking much information into consideration. Like, but yes, you can, like, this is what I do every day. I look at the current astrology and how it's affecting me, and then I try to work with it as best I can. So yes, never ever think that your horoscope is set in stone because it isn't. Natal horoscope. Okay. Yeah, even with that, like, it's extremely helpful and to say the least, and it'll tell you the energy that you have to work with, but it doesn't mean that it's like telling you what's destined to happen. Like, you can control that. You can recreate that as you see fit. You are welcome. And hello there, Ryan. Nice quack to you, sir. Good to have you here. All right, so let us dive in. We'll be looking at the Biddy Tarot ebook first, as usual. Again, this book kind of straddles surfacey meanings and deeper meanings. It's a good balanced place to start. So let's dive in. Moon. Description. The astrological sign associated with this card is Pisces, psychic, receptive, mysterious. The rune is Lagaz. I'm not sure how to say that. Lagaz. Notice the moon embodies all three lunar phases as well as the sun. A clue to one of the meanings of this card lies in the fact that there are 15 yods, the number of the devil. Before we continue, that's another thing that's interesting about this. So this is the moon ruled by Neptune. Well, I meant to say this earlier, but I forgot. Neptune is the reflective planet, and the moon shares that in common with Neptune. Like, the moon in astrology is reflective, as is the planet Neptune, and the moon card is ruled by Neptune, reflective planet. So more connections there. But yeah, so it says a clue to one of the meanings of this card lies in the fact that there are 15 yods, the number of the devil. The pool is the pool of the subconscious. Crawling out of it is a crayfish, the embodiment of the early stages of consciousness unfolding. The wolf is nature's untamed creation, while the dog is the domestic, tamed version of the wolf. The path leads between those two towers again, but this time the veil is gone, signifying there is no longer a barrier between you and your subconscious. So wait a minute, let's look at this. So showing the card here for us to see the two animals there, and it says the wolf is nature's untamed creation, while the dog is the domestic, tamed version of the wolf. And then it talks about the veil being gone, saying that there's no longer a barrier between you and your subconscious. We were talking about a little bit earlier the connection to the High Priestess card, which had the veil. Well, now, as this book rightfully says, there's no more veil separating you and your subconscious, which is interesting because, I was thinking about this before the stream. I thought, so we have had a number of cards by now in the major arcana, in the latter stages of the major arcana, talking all about the subconscious, the unconscious, and going into it and reconciling polarities and all this stuff. Here we are at card 18 of 21, nearly at the end of the major arcana, and we're still talking about the subconscious. So now I'm not even sure what it's going to be, but my prediction is there must be something more to this card. There must be some additional thing than just another exploration of the subconscious. There has to be some kind of again, this is my theory, I don't actually know yet, but some kind of finality that we experience in this card. So let us hopefully find out. Let's see. Listen to the voice of intuition. There are 7 rocks on the stream bank, 3 red for the Trinity, Maiden, Mother, and Crone, or Father, Son, and Sage, plus 4 yellow. 4 is the number of stability. 7 is the divine number. The crayfish crawling out of the waters is a good sign to pay attention to your latent psychic powers that are unfolding. 4 is the number of stability, it says, and there's also this idea of the stability of the constancy of change. It's almost like a paradox. Like, since change is constantly happening, there is, you could say paradoxically, a stability in that. So let's see. The moon is the card of intuition, dreams, and the unconscious. The moon provides light as a reflection of the sun, yet this light is dim, uncertain, and only vaguely illuminates our path as we journey toward higher consciousness. Similarly, our dreams, intuitions, and inner promptings lead us forward toward higher levels of understanding if we listen carefully and use our judgment to help interpret the veiled messages of the unconscious. The water at the base of the card represents the inner ocean of the collective unconscious from which a crab or crayfish appears. This creature represents the often disturbing images which appear from our inner depths, just as the dog and wolf at the beginning of the path represent the tamed and wild aspects of our minds. The path leads between 2 towers into the mountains in the distance. So I just realized, I don't know how I did this, but I forgot in my little summary of this card to give my description of how I interpret this card in divinatory readings. So you better do that real quick. It's because I'm running on a half-hour sleep right now and talk about the moon card. Anyway, so when I get this card in a reading, I'm going to hold it with this hand. I typically think of it as dreams, illusions, the subconscious. Like if I see the moon card, just generally speaking, I think imagination, I think spirituality. Sometimes I can think something supernatural. I can, of course, think of the potential for confusion and illusion, all those Neptunian things. There's the idea in some very extreme negative cases of extreme mental illnesses, insanity, schizophrenia, paranoia. Of course, Pisces is associated with the 12th house of hidden things, all that is hidden, including hidden enemies. And so that's one of the most common meanings you'll see with this card is the idea of hidden enemies, people talking behind your back and stuff like that. That's certainly a thing that can happen. Let's see, rites, rituals, ceremonies, supernatural stuff, even the idea of vampirism, psychic vampirism, health problems with the moon being associated one way or another with our health, it always seems. I think that would mainly be it. Yeah, whenever I get the moon in a reading, that's generally what I think of the most. Now, if I get it reversed, usually the first thing that comes to mind when I see this reversed is, more clarity, the end of the illusion, the end of fantasy and false belief, things becoming more clear, seeing things as they are, especially if the sun card upright is nearby, then I'll think, oh yeah, really seeing things as they are, the sun upright, the moon reversed, and then some other cards too that can kind of indicate that. Now, in a more negative sense though, the moon reverse could sometimes perhaps indicate, it could still indicate illusion and stuff like that in some cases because of the way this card is, but it could sometimes indicate perhaps an unwillingness to see the truth, an unwillingness to find clarity when one needs to find clarity. And hopefully we'll get more into that later. But yes, just for the record, that is how I generally interpret the moon card. Let's see. Ryan's picking up a new card today. Very cool. Hope you have fun with that. You're going to watch the rest of this later. Glad to hear it. Kira, you have a Pisces moon. Ah, nice. Yeah, Pisces moon. That's gonna make one quite the intuitive person, generally speaking. All right, so let us continue. Meanings. The moon is a psychological card of projecting fear into your present and your future based on past ordeals. The images, thoughts, and feelings that you have repressed cause disturbances which are overwhelming. This results in negative blocks within your personality and cause pain and anxiety. The moon makes you shudder as it presents a sordid reality most people choose to sublimate or ignore. This card represents a purging process where deep memories are released. You go deep into your soul and dredge up your anxieties, phobias, psychic blocks, and personality disturbances. This trump always requires you to expose your soul so you can beat your karmic condition and reclaim your true spirit. The moon brings many invisible things to the surface: secret motives, clandestine information, ancient hidden truths brought into the light. These newly discovered resources may confuse you, but once they are brought to your awareness, they will no longer haunt you. The moon can represent an attraction between two people that is deep and uncanny and taking place under conditions that are unreal or altered. The moon is symbolic of your imagination. It is an illusion in itself. Guard against accepting illusions as they may cause an error in your judgment. Ulterior motives may motivate selfish solicitation of your assistance. Want your dreams to come true or for things to go smoothly, but have a feeling they are not going to. There will be many unforeseen changes and unexpected occurrences, and only when you are willing for things to be the way they are and accept them as they are will they change. You can't run from the problem. The only way out is through. Another interesting thing to throw in here, I don't know, this is really going out into left field or whatever, but there are many people out there who are highly convinced that the moon itself, the physical moon orbiting the Earth, is an artificial construct. And they'll cite all kinds of apparent evidence for this. And I'm not sure what to think of this claim these days. I mean, the apparent evidence is certainly very fascinating, but they'll say that it's artificial, or it has to be artificial, because they'll say things like, oh, there's no way that a natural Earth satellite could be as big as the moon is. And they'll say things like, the best explanation for it is observational error. And there are people who think essentially that there are some people who think anyway, essentially, that the moon is something sinister. And that's why in tarot and astrology, it's so often associated with dark things. So just for what it's worth, throwing it out there. I'm not saying I believe that, but it's certainly an interesting theory. I'll give it that. Can you ask a question? I am not doing tarot readings right now. That's not what this stream is about, but we might be doing some later on tonight if you would like to come back then. I'm not sure yet, though. All right, let's see. Night journey. You need to go on without a clear picture of where you are going, or where you have been. You do not have to fear the unknown. With intuition and faith in yourself and benevolent forces, you can succeed. If you look around the room right now, you'll see people and objects that are comforting in their familiarity. Everything is exactly as you expect it to be. You know that if you closed your eyes and opened them, the room would be the same. But have you ever lost the familiar to find in its place a world so extraordinary you can't even grasp it? This is the experience of the moon. Most of the time, we live in a tiny pocket of normality that we wrap around us like a security blanket. We turn our backs on the mysterious universe that waits outside. From time to time, we may sneak a peek with our imagination, or venture out through fantasy or expanded awareness. We can be thrust out there unprepared through drugs, madness, or intense experiences such as battle. The moon is the light of this realm, the world of shadow and night. Although this place is awesome, it does not have to be frightening. In the right circumstances, the moon inspires and enchants. It holds out the promise that all you imagine can be yours. The moon guides you to the unknown so you can allow the unusual into your life. Sadly, we are usually afraid of the moon. Yeah, so what it seems to sort of be alluding to there is this idea that the moon card can often represent experiences where, I think it might be about to get more into this, I'm not sure, but experiences where we suddenly find ourselves in like a strange, different sort of reality, where you just, for whatever reason, you end up doing something very, very different, or just going somewhere strange, maybe like you're driving home and it's late at night and it's really foggy and mysterious, and suddenly you feel like you're in another world, this whole otherworldly feeling. But also like experiences that I guess are just very that are very sudden and strange, not in the Uranian way, not with the planet Uranus, which is, just all of a sudden everything is weird and crazy, but instead in a more fluid, mysterious, like brooding, foreboding kind of way. But sometimes maybe not even in ominous sort of, or in a way that ominous, but almost in a pleasant way. Like, it brings to mind one experience I had many years ago when some friends and I went to try to find this allegedly haunted cemetery. And to tell you the truth, there's even still a video documenting that up on this channel from many, many years ago. But, probably shouldn't go digging the depths of this channel because of the crazy shit you might find. But anyway, it is up there if anyone really wants to go searching for it. But I just remember that night, like it was a cold early November night. It had just been Halloween, so we were a little late for searching for a haunted cemetery, but nevertheless, there we were. And it was this cold November night, but it was clear. And like, I remember we were on this road and there was like a stream by the road, and we were walking down that road by the stream, and I just looked at the stream and I could see the moonlight reflecting on the stream in the dead of night. And we were like way out in the freaking country or something. So it's not like there's a bunch of city lights around or anything. And it was so beautiful. In fact, I was so taken aback by the sheer mysterious beauty of this moonlight on this water and the stream at night, and the sound of the stream, and the sound of the cold early November night, that I was actually shocked kind of that the friends I was with just kept walking along. They didn't even notice it, actually. I was like trying to like savor all of it and take it all in. It was the most mysteriously but delightfully dark and beautiful thing I had like ever seen. I was like, wow, I wish I could experience this more often. So I would say for me personally, the reason I bring this up is, for me personally, that was a positive moon card experience. That's kind of what I'm talking about here, where you just suddenly find yourself in a situation that is completely different from what you're used to, but it's of this really nebulous and perhaps even satisfyingly dark and beautiful quality, So hopefully those of you watching can get a feel for what I mean here. That would be like a positive moon card experience, I would say. And so, to get a deeper understanding perhaps of this card, that's another thing worth considering. Lunatic fringe, lunatic, crazy. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if those known as the lunatic fringe have particularly strong aspects from the moon. Of course, I'm basically predisposed to a lot of far out viewpoints, and I have to use like my conscious willpower to sort of control that, rein that in, and not let myself enter the realms of insanity, if I'm being honest. I think it's because I have with a wide enough orb of Moon-Pluto opposition in my natal chart, which can make people all kinds of crazy. So I have to be careful. I have to use my conscious willpower to not let myself become a lunatic, Fine with being poetic heretic. I don't want to be poetic lunatic. So there you go. All right, let's continue. In readings, this card often stands for fears and anxieties, the ones that come in the darkest part of the night. Card 18 also stands for illusions. It is easy to lose our way in the moonlight. Be careful not to let deceptions and false ideas lead you astray. Sometimes the moon is a signal that you are lost and wandering aimlessly. You must find your way back to the path in your clarity of purpose. Let's see, it's 2:05 p.m. We've still got nearly 2 hours. Unforeseen perils, deception, change may mean bad luck for an acquaintance, unfolding of latent powers, card of the psychic, occult forces surround you. This card says at this time in your love life, things aren't clear. Your emotional path isn't an easy one right now, and your feelings are fluctuating and changing like the phases of the moon. You are experiencing confusion and uncertainty, and you are seeking information or solutions to whatever it is that is troubling you in the circumstances of your love life. This card says to tell you to trust your instincts as you walk the path, that your instincts are right. Trust your intuition and to be open to solutions which you may receive from your dreams. Ah, yes. Let that be heavily emphasized here for a moment. The moon card, with its association with the sign of Pisces and the planet Neptune, is going to relate heavily to the idea of dreams. Dreams and the whole subjective realm like that. All about the moon card. Keywords: illusion, fear, insecurity, mystery. Reversed: imagination is harnessed by practicality. Change is not disruptive. Love will win, but not before it is almost destroyed. Take no risks. That's all it has to say about the card reversed. Interesting. Well, I think there's a lot more to it reversed than that, but we'll get into that soon enough. All right, so next we're just going to look up the moon card on a website or two, analyze that, see what we think of it, and then continue. See, what's WeatherBug alerting me of now? Some alert. Let's see. Keen.com is the first article. As is so often the case. Winter weather advisory. Snow expected. Total snow accumulations of 3 to 5 inches. Great. That'll have absolutely no effect on me whatsoever. All right. So, all right, here we go. The Moon Tarot card. Have you discovered an unfamiliar yet beautiful new reality? Are you feeling disconnected to the values and traditions with which you were brought up? Is an alienation from the norm creeping into your life? Have you been talked into something that only last year you would have considered preposterous? Are you aimless in your goals and ambition? Has an artistically inspired streak of creativity suddenly appeared out of nowhere? All of these brooding outsider tendencies call forth the moon card from the tarot deck when you seek a reading to show you the way. In the middle of the night, the moon appears low in the sky. It is full, rays of light emanating from it, and yet there's a contemplative face in profile taking up almost half of one side. The landscape under the moon has a dirt path in the center leading off into the hills. There is a dog and a wolf, one on either side of the path. In the foreground, there is a body of water into which the path leads. A lobster crawls up out of... Okay. So in the previous book, they said they called it a crayfish, but in this article, in this source, they're calling it a lobster. We'll Well, which is it? Is it a crayfish or is it a lobster? Can someone explain this? Or maybe am I just being dumb? Or are a crayfish and a lobster the same thing? I don't know, but whatever. Let's just continue. So let's see here. Lobster crawls out of the sea, its front claws touching the start of the path. On the far left and right of the card at the beginning of the darkened hills are matching stone obelisk watchtowers. Everything about this card presents two possibilities. We only see half of the surface of the moon, and the profile of the face is only half of it. The towers match, but are on opposite sides of the card. Is the path leading to the lobster, or is this crustacean merely starting the journey into wisdom? ... or oblivion. The dog and wolf represent our animal nature, and the lobster is near the bottom of the evolutionary ladder, behind the dog and wolf, just beginning to understand that there is a path to higher consciousness. The watchtowers represent the mysteries of good and evil, and how they may appear quite alike, and that we discover them as we grow, walking down the path of consciousness. We grow into distinguishing good from evil. The moon can inspire insight as easily as it signals the presence of great confusion. Very true, very true. Meaning in past, present, and future positions. Every tarot reading is divided into three sections: the past, the present, and the future. False, not every tarot spread has past, present, and future, as I always have to say when we read this questionably informed website. When a card lands in a particular position, it tells your story from this time frame. If the moon card shows up in the past position, look for a recent period of confusion to be to blame for your current strife. If you had a great inspiration and manifested it into art or expression that helped you cope, the moon inspired you to find order amidst the chaos. You made the best of your past as you could, considering the circumstances, and can look back on those days as having been fruitful rather than a cause of anything negative. When drawn in the present position, you may be getting so many mixed signals from the outside world that you are turning to a tarot reading as a seeking of some clarity, some answer to all the confusion. The world around you may be different, and the structures that have long comforted you are suddenly absent. The temptations of alcohol, drugs, meaningless pleasure-seeking, gambling, and other escapes from reality are all too real. Yes, absolutely. That part I really strongly agree with because, again, moon card, ruled by Neptune, ruling intoxicating substances, drugs and alcohol, and also escapism. Like, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I can't emphasize this strongly enough. The planet Neptune, which rules the moon card, Neptune dissolves. Neptune is like, it reminds me so much of that kind of spirituality that as soon as you get into it, it just begins sort of melting everything away, whether that's ultimately a good thing or a bad thing in the circumstance. Like, and just like alcohol, you drink, if someone drinks alcohol, they feel a diffusion of focus, and that's actually what brings the relief that people seek from that. It's not even, people don't even understand what alcohol does to them. It diffuses their focus, because when you're more generally focused, there's less intensity. The more specifically you focus, the more intensity there is. So you don't even need alcohol or drugs to achieve that diffusion of focus. You can just go general. You can just think general thoughts. For example, instead of thinking, what would be an example? Instead of thinking, I feel exhausted because I only got 1 hour of sleep, you could say, I don't feel quite with it today. Go general. There's a diffusion of focus. Anyway, just want to emphasize that. But yes, Neptune, it's this gaseous planet or whatever. Neptune is like Jupiter without the limit of Saturn, as Rick Levine often puts it. Neptune says, I am going to expand and expand and expand until I take up the entirety of the universe, and then everything is essentially me. And that's why Neptune is the planet representing the idea of, oh, we're all one and that kind of thing. So let's continue. But the point is, dissolution is a huge aspect of the moon card. Let's see. The moon represents falling out of touch with reality. However, it also represents a chance to better yourself by not believing in the false assumptions that we all agree to within societal norms. Instead of following the path that you are told will get you somewhere, the path that has at present left you lost, the moon signals your opportunity to create your own structures, a life from your own imagination and design. Hang on. So it also represents a chance to better yourself by not believing in the false assumptions that we all agree to within societal norms. Interesting. Instead of following the path that you were told would get you somewhere, the moon signals your opportunity to create your own structures. Yeah. Well, that's what I'd advise to people anytime. Yeah. In the future position, the moon can be a harbinger that you will meander away from what is important in your life and follow a hobby or vocation that is a different path altogether. This could signal a coming spiritual awakening or your joining of a small religious group. Be on guard for the vulnerability that all new converts feel as their path toward spiritual enlightenment meets with manipulative individuals. The future position is great if you are in a creative field. This reveals that afflictions of boredom, such as writer's block or attention deficits, will soon be forgotten as a rush of inspiration fills you and you have a new muse to follow. All right. Card combinations. A tarot reading involves a collection of cards, not an individual card. No card is an island. Your reading will have cards influencing each other, slightly changing the respective meanings and delivering a unique message for your situation. When the moon is in a reading with the Strength card, both of these cards have the number 8 as their base. Strength is numbered 8 and the moon is numbered 18. The two of these cards in a reading together propel you to fight for a vision you have of the way things should be. When paired with the Hermit card, your isolation is causing you to lose touch with the enjoyable things concerning your day-to-day existence. When paired with the Hanged Man, your need to be in control has alienated people and left you to run your enterprise all alone. The moon is a good card to have in a reading with the Wheel of Fortune, as it confirms that your losing touch with reality is actually your understanding of where the world is going and you already being there. The thing that you enjoy that seems weird to everyone today will be the norm in 6 years. Likewise, the Chariot delivers a rousing victory to your vision of the way things could be. I would say it's particularly interesting when you do have a reading with the moon and the Hermit, especially if they're both significantly affecting the reading, because so the Hermit card number 9, and we know that 9s are tied to the moon, not just the moon card itself, not just the moon card, but like the idea of the moon astrologically as well. But it's just interesting that the Hermit, being ruled by piercingly analytical Virgo, is all about focus that is highly specific, whereas the moon card is like the exact opposite. It's about a complete diffusion of focus. It's about imagination. The Hermit card is like the left brain to the extreme, and the moon card is like the right brain to the extreme. That may be an oversimplification, but that gives you the idea. So now that's not to say that they aren't actually related. I would say that, in some way, shape, or form they are, at least. It's just to say that it's an interesting dichotomy, perhaps even paradox. Would that be fair to say? I don't know. But anyway, let's see here. Notification from Twitter. Okay. So where are we located at? Okay. When paired with the magician or the devil, there are manipulative or destructive people in your life who are taking advantage of you without you realizing the price you will eventually have to pay for associating with them. So isn't that interesting, though? It's funny because this was mentioned in the book earlier that we looked at, but it never really got into it. So the 15 yods symbolizing the devil card. And my God, if anyone wants to look at those streams we did up on my channel, the devil card, feel free. But my God, do they get intense? Like, just brace yourself. I'm warning you. But what I find interesting about that is one of the key themes that came up as we were analyzing that devil card, especially the Rider Waite version, is this idea of, wait for it, hypnotism. People being under the spell of illusion and like a hypnotic trance. And we were comparing that to, everything from like religious leaders to even a lot of people in the New Age movement, whether for good or ill, probably in many cases for ill, unfortunately. And like TV and stuff like that, even like a lot of the culture, at least here in the United States where I'm located, being like this sort of hypnotic, hedonic trance, this hypnotic, hedonic trance. And what is the moon card also so much about? Illusion. And could we maybe perhaps say hypnotism to some extent? I don't know. I'm just sort of throwing this out there for discussion. But if not, it's one hell of a coincidence, the devil card. Yeah. And here's the thing, though. This wasn't just some theory that I threw out. I'm almost certain we came across in one or more of the sources that we looked at with the devil card, that same idea of it being about, and at least in some cases, hypnotism. And here we have 15 Yods, number of the devil card, and we have, Neptune, the planet of illusion, getting caught up in the unreal hypnotism. It all seems to fit together, doesn't it? So it's fascinating. It's also interesting to consider, of course, on that note, like I mentioned earlier, though, the moon ruled by Neptune is all about we are all one. The devil ruled by Saturn is all about we are all separate. And yet both can have extremely negative manifestations, but both can also have extremely positive manifestations. Paradox is an understatement. Yeah, perhaps it is. Yeah. I wasn't sure. I was like, am I going too far with that? But no, you're probably right. They're quite the opposite energies. The Hermit and the Moon, that is, being the opposite energies. Howling at the moon type stuff. Yes. Yeah, it's funny. Like, it reminds me again of the idea of like, the legends associated with the full moon, like werewolves and stuff. And indeed, the moon card can talk about the supernatural, whether you believe in anything supernatural. I'm not saying werewolves are real, but don't make me go there, though, people. Don't make me go on that subject. Look up dogmen, and then your minds will really be blown if you think there's nothing like that in existence. Listen to some Dogman Encounters radio, and boy, sometimes I wonder what's lurking out there in the depths of the woods where so few dare to go in the dead of night. But anyway, not the subject of this stream. The moon card is surrounded in the deck by card number 17, the star, and card number 19, the sun. Either of these appearing in your reading with the moon will make your higher consciousness a thing of valuable insight for your journey ahead, as well as for those around you. Yeah, that's another thing that we want to consider as always. So, what is this BS? My tablet disconnected from the internet temporarily. Well, whatever. I have a comment to make anyway. So, please tell me that did not distract me and make me forget what I was going to say. Oh, no, I remember. So, as always, every card in the major arcana is both the complement of and the opposite to the card preceding it and subsequent to it. So, the moon card is going to be both the complement and the opposite of the star that came before it, which the star talked about, following the light of the star, hope and inspiration. And we can see some similarities here in the moon card. Got to sort of trust and follow the light of the moon. And then the complement and opposite of the card following it, the sun. Very obvious what we have there. Of course, the moon and the sun, need I say more? But again, just pointing these things out, because the more you understand all these little details, the more you can wrap your mind around the essence of the card. See, this is what I want people to understand too. Like, it might seem silly to throw out all of these correspondences and all these little details and whatnot, but see, when it comes to tarot and astrology, what I've learned, or at least my leading theory on it, and I think I've said this before, is that you have to kind of just get the cards and the signs, or at least a much deeper understanding of them is when you actually get a feel for them, not just like understand them intellectually, but you get a feel for them. And one of the, perhaps, I don't know, maybe even the only way to get a feel for them, other than perhaps with direct experience with them, is to hear like one little detail after another about them, one little correspondence after another with them. So every time I say, oh, the moon card's ruled by Neptune, and that rules drugs, everything from drugs to dreams to imagination, and, non-physical, all this stuff. And then Pisces, psychic, intuitive, perceptive, all this stuff. It's all adding to that amalgamation that is essential for your eventual grasping of the essence of the card. And same goes for astrological signs. And I'm not even here saying that I've grasped all of them, not even close. In fact, not to the degree that I would like to anyway. Like, you have to really dive into each card and each sign to sort of get an intuitive feel for them in this way that I'm talking about. So what I'm wanting to say here, though, is never think that any little detail is not important. It's all of value. Someone dared you. You mean like to go into the woods in the dead of night? I think that's what you're referring to. That would be terrifying. Well, actually, I guess I've kind of done that, like by myself and with other people at times. But I've never been like deep into woods in the middle of nowhere. Like, that would really be terrifying. Even in the daytime, I'd be scared of that, especially after what I've heard about dogmen. So, yes, if anyone's wondering, I do believe dogmen exist, at least in some realities. I've even talked to someone who swears to me that she saw one before, and this person would have no reason to lie to me. So, yeah, that, and once you've heard enough episodes of Dogman Encounters Radio, you hear people's voices and how they quiver with fear as they recount their stories. There's something out there in those woods. I don't want to scare anyone, but then again, maybe I do want to scare people a little bit, because that's a huge aspect of this card too. Fear, and facing our fears, getting in touch with them. What's interesting to consider about that, though, is the fact that all reality is psychological, even those kinds of far out, terrifying things. So let's assume dogmen are real. Even they are psychological. Even they are representative of aspects of our psyche. So try that one on for size. All right, so finish with that source. Let's just sort of take a little breather here. Where the hell is this thing at? Oh, it's almost fully charged. Excellent. You're mostly scared of people. I think I often am too, sadly, though I'm trying to get over that, but it isn't easy. So let's see what else we can burn and observe. Next up is trustedtarot.com. I think after that, or after this website, we are going to dive into the Thoth version of the card, and we're going to get deep as fuck, basically. Actually, let me see something real quick. I can't help but wonder about the monetization status of the stream, since we're talking about some sort of heavy subjects at times. A little bit. It's probably fine, but I'm just curious. Okay, yeah, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. All right. So again, this is trustedtarot.com. And this is the moon. Be careful. Caution. Confusion. Delusion. Risk. The moon's meaning. Something in your life is not what it seems. Perhaps a misunderstanding on your part, or a truth you cannot admit to yourself. It may also indicate something important being kept from you by another. This may be a source of worry or depression in your life, and the moon is a strong indicator that you must rely on your intuition to see through the subterfuge. Past. Your understanding of a past event may be distorted by your current perceptions. Reflect on your history and make sure the pieces fit together. By eliminating uncertainty, you will find more peace. Present. There is a challenge approaching, taking the form of either a new creative project or a conflict in a relationship. Your history will reveal the best course of action. Future. Your imagination will bring you success if your thoughts are coupled with practical action. The struggle to reach your potential may bring about many conflicts in your life, but the results will be beautiful. Yes/no key interpretation. The moon is an elusive and confusing card. It suggests the presence of risks, secrets, and some level of mental confusion. It would warn you to take caution and be careful in whatever endeavor you are pursuing in your life. The answer you are seeking is no. All right, of course, it is ruled by Pisces. It says key dates February 19th to March 20th, Pisces season. All right, so let's dive into the Thoth version. I feel like there's so many things that can potentially be said about this card, and yet I still don't grasp the main message of it, but I'm sure that, as usual, we're going to figure out what that is by the end of, this stream, or part 2 anyway. All right. Okay, so here we go with esotericmeanings.com, the Thoth version of the card. By the way, I guess I'll just announce this right now. As far as these tarot streams go, once we complete the final card of the major arcana of the world, also known as the universe, I'm not sure if I'm going to restart the major arcana after that, as I said I would before. I've been thinking about it lately, and I think maybe we should just go into the minor arcana, because the reality is, once we finish with the minor arcana, and yes, that will take like over a year, my streaming conditions and our resources and my knowledge of the cards and everything is going to be infinitely better. And so it might just be better to wait like a year or a little more to restart the whole cycle and go back through the major arcana and the minor arcana, as long as nothing changes by then that would interrupt that. So I don't know. I've been thinking about it, trying to decide, but I don't know. I might revisit the earlier cards of the major arcana before we continue with the minor arcana, or we might just blast in the minor arcana. To be perfectly honest, I'm really kind of wanting to dive into it and learn more about it after being through the major arcana, as we have been. So we'll see. We'll see what my highest excitement dictates. Though I'm also interested in, if any of you guys have any strong feelings about it, then let me know. You may be able to sway my my decision, because I'm also, it is also part of my excitement to please my viewers, even though I primarily do these streams for me, basically. But I enjoy giving the people what they want to, if that makes sense. All right, so esotericmeanings.com, Thoth Moon Tarot card. This person's YouTube channel is Thoth Tarot Videos. Check them out if you want more of this kind of material. Thoth Moon Tarot card. The moon is often seen as a glyph for illusion and deception. Unlike the priestess, who represents the most exalted qualities of the moon, this card represents its more challenging aspects. It represents the unknown, fear, and also things that we do not necessarily want to face. All right. So I think I'm starting to see a little bit of a pattern here, right? Like the uncomfortable things and the subconscious that we don't want to face. The thing that I'm confused about, though, still, is that I thought we basically got over those things in the star card, if not the tower. You know, I thought in the journey through the cards we got over those things already. Are we still not over them? Perhaps not. Let's continue. All right, then it gives a picture of the Rider-Waite Moon Tarot card, which of course we've been over. All right, Thoth Moon Tarot card in the Tree of Life. The path of the moon joins Netzach, Sephirah 7, to Malkuth, Sephirah 10. At the very bottom of the tree it just says tree. It takes the seeker far from the divine source in Kether into the material world of Malkuth, the kingdom, where all the accumulated energies of the tree take fixed form. So let's see, Netzach to Malkuth. Wow, down to the lowest Sephiroth, Malkuth. All right. Interesting. Netzach means victory, and here the implication is the conquering of our own demons. Malkuth is the earthly Sephiroth at the very bottom of the Tree of Life, serves as the means for establishing an identification with outer reality. The implication of this path between Netzach and Malkuth is to look inside ourselves to that which we have repressed/ignored and have found it difficult to come to terms with, Moon, in order to conquer this aspect of our nature, Netzach, victory, so that we can express ourselves much more freely in our daily life, Malkuth. All right, of course, we're going to go back over that in a moment because that's a lot to take in, and we might have just cracked the ultimate mystery of this card. Or perhaps a big part of it. So, the implication of this path between Netzach and Malkuth is to look inside ourselves to that which we have repressed/ignored and have found difficult to come to terms with, Moon, in order to conquer this aspect of our nature, Netzach, victory, so that we can express ourselves much more freely in our daily life, Malkuth. Okay, that makes sense. Conquer our fears so that we can express ourselves much more freely. Makes sense. But again, I'm still unclear. I thought we conquered our fears and everything back in the tower or something, or the star in the previous card, but I feel like there's something I'm not seeing here. Could it be that the star card ultimately is really just more like a glimpse into what life can be like once we fully reintegrate, or once we have faced our fears and all that kind of stuff? Could that be the reality? And that's why we have the moon following the star, because basically we're not done yet. We have more fears to face and reintegrate. But anyway, here is the image on the Tree of Life. Netzach ruled by Venus, it looks like, and Malkuth ruled by, is that supposed to be the Earth? I don't know, but I'm sure we'll find out. But anyway, let's show this for now. All right. Thoth Moon Tarot card, Hebrew and astrological attribution. A. Hebrew association. Koth is the 19th path within the tree of life and the 19th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It means back of the head and is related to the cerebellum of the brain, which, amongst other things, is concerned with regulating pleasure and fear responses. Also, being at the back of the head, it represents that which we do not see and is therefore related to the subconscious, as shown in the picture below. Okay, well, one thing at a time here. So, first of all, you can see that on the moon card itself, of course, as always, right down here. Try to get it to show up with clarity. There it is. That little symbol right there. And there it is. You can still see it overall. And just for the hell of it, there it is on the website as well. And then, of course, right, it is shown in the picture below. And there that is. And I should have left it like it was before and then just came back to it. I mean, I don't even know what I'm saying. I mean, not remove the tablet because then it defocuses, but whatever. Also, give me just a second. I'm gonna have to turn my heater down. The heat is building up in here. Okay. B, astrological association. The Thoth Moon Tarot card is associated with Pisces. Pisces is very much associated with the subconscious, emotions, intuition, and artistry. This is the last of the major arcana cards to be associated with the zodiac sign. Pisces is ruled by Neptune, named for the Roman god of the sea, image below. I gotta get comfortable, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Neptune's watery depths are associated with dreams, visions, and the imagination, which links it in with the qualities of the moon. And you can see this beautiful image. Is it going to focus for us? Come on, hocus pocus focus. Yeah, I'm going to try something. Maybe if I hold it really still. That'll do it. Okay. Is it reality or is it an illusion? With a Neptune, it is hard to tell. Those with a prominent Neptune may be drawn towards mysticism and spiritual pursuits. And we can see Neptune right there. If this doesn't focus, I'm just probably not going to bother, since it's pretty obvious what we have here with Neptune. There we go. On the negative side, Neptune may lead people under its influence into the depths of drugs, alcohol, delusion, hypochondria, and abnormality. It may resort to trickery, deceit, deception, and guilt, and with the moon in a challenging position on the Tree of Life, this explains why difficulties and obstacles are brought up with this card. Symbolism of the Moon card. We will divide the Thoth Moon Tarot card into a lower and upper half for the purpose of this description. A. Lower half of the Thoth Moon Tarot card. And I'm just looking at the card as well. Okay. Kephra, the beetle in the lower half of the card holding the solar disk. Kephra means he who is coming into being and represents the sun god in one of his incarnations in Egyptian mythology. The solar disk represents the conscious mind, which descends into our subconscious to confront our fears/neurosis and the things that are holding us back. Okay, so let's see the beetle in the lower half of the card holding the solar disk. Just see there. Hang on. So let me show this here. And again, it says, Kephra means he who is coming into being and represents the sun god in one of his incarnations in Egyptian mythology. The solar disk represents the conscious mind, which descends into our subconscious to confront our fears/neurosis and the things that are holding us back. So that is that beetle in the lower half of the card holding the solar disk. So, and then the solar disk represents the conscious mind, which descends into our subconscious to confront our fear/neurosis and the things that are holding us back. Yes, beetles know this. Oh, jeez. That was a highly unusual development. I went to move my hand and it's made contact with the card and sort of sweeped it to the floor. Jeez. Oh, boy. Wait, what are you saying, Lumen? Used to love sex, now you hate sex. So upset it came into a woman, so fine, I won't give birth to anything. Yes, I know exactly what's holding me back. Damn. Well, that is your free will, you know. We all have a right to decide what we think of everything. The contrast, as Abraham would describe it. So it says, the scarab was one of the most potent symbols of ancient Egypt, primarily symbolizing the sun, resurrection, transformation, and protection. The scarab beetle was also called the dung beetle because of its practice of rolling a ball of dung across the ground, which it then used as a source of food. Ugh, wow. I swear I've heard that somewhere before. I'm just not sure where. So let's see. So first of all, it shows an image here of the beetle. And then it says the analogy here is that the god Kefra rolls the sun across the sky, particularly relating to when the sun first rises from the underworld, hence the link with resurrection and transformation. And then we see, hang on, this image right here. You were supposed to be a man, Lumen. Well, there are many that feel the same way. Definitely not alone in that. There are many biological women who feel that they were supposed to be men, and many biological men that feel that they were supposed to be women. So you're definitely not alone in that. I think we're okay. I was going to say we're out of focus, but now we're good. All right. In the Rider-Waite deck, we have the crab appearing out of the pool, talking about things that are coming out of the subconscious depth of the personality. We also have the sun in this card at the bottom, which is being pushed by the god Kefra, who is responsible for rolling the solar disk across the sky. So let's see here. So in the Rider-Waite, we have the crab appearing out of the pool, right? Talking about the things that are coming out of the subconscious depth of the personality, as we saw earlier. So it's gone from a crayfish to a lobster to a crab now. It's like, which is it? What is this thing crawling out of the pool? Like what actually is it? Some strange, mysterious creature. All right, and then it says, again, we also have the sun in this card at the bottom, which is being pushed by the god Kefra, who is responsible for rolling the solar disk across the sky. Right. You can see basically the sun there. So wait a minute. I need to re-look at this because I'm running on 30 minutes of sleep here. So the god Kefra rolls the sun across the sky, particularly relating to when the sun first rises from the underworld, hence the link with resurrection and transformation. Oh. This might be relating to legends of, oh boy. My memory is not the best on this because what I'm about to get into is not my particular area of expertise, but for better or for worse, I have studied it. There are legends, at least, maybe this is fact, I'm not even sure, but there are at least legends of a time when like the Earth's axis was different or something. And there were these ancient cultures, at least allegedly, that would experience like insanely long nights and insanely long days, like 6 months of night and 6 months of day or something like that. And they would develop all this like mythology about the sun. They would say like, well, when it gets dark and they saw the sun go below the horizon for 6 months or whatever, that would be like the sun entering the underworld, and they develop all this mythology about it. And then it would rise again at last. And then that would like symbolize, why did the lighting just change? That's weird. The lighting in the room didn't change. But the sun at last rising again would symbolize like resurrection, essentially. And I think that might be what this is getting at. I'm not completely sure, but it's certainly what it brings to mind. Nikiji rhythm. Day of the Lobster, yeah. Alaska, yeah. Well, it's not just like what it's like in Alaska and stuff like that. Like, allegedly, there was literally a time, again, I don't know if this is just myth or if this actually happened, but allegedly there was a time where the Earth's axis was not tilted or something, or the Earth's axis was different, and we had like, or at least many parts of the Earth, perhaps, I don't even know, had 6 months of winter, or not 6 months of winter, 6 months of night and 6 months of day. And there was like all this mythology developed about the sun, like going below, and all this time of darkness, and it's legends of it being in the underworld, symbolizing the self and stuff like that. And then when it finally came above the horizon again, being about this idea of like resurrection or whatever. And I'm wondering if with this scarab beetle or whatever, if that's what this is getting at, perhaps. What also drives me absolutely insane is I know I have heard of this idea of the dung beetle before, like with the scarab beetle and all this stuff. I know somewhere in my years of insane research, half of which I wish I had never even done, I've come across this idea. I'm just not entirely sure where. Let's see. Well, I mean, I know it's associated with Egypt. I don't know where I've read it before though, or come across it before. Slanted-eyes people have more sunlight hours, so their eyes evolve to provide protection. Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Well, perhaps some of these mysteries will be further unveiled as we go. Like, I feel like, oh my God. I feel like that symbolism is somewhere else, and I've come across it somewhere else, but I just can't remember where. I could probably find out if I really wanted to, but I'm not sure if I do, because I might get into things that I'm not sure if I even want to get into. But anyway, let's see here. Okay, so blue and red waves, huge peaks and troughs. Unlike the stagnation of the pool and the Rider-Waite deck, they give the card its watery feel, with the moon affecting the tides. This wave pattern is also reflected in the top half of the card. Okay, so oh yeah, I see blue and red waves, and then also the top. Okay, yeah, it's pretty obvious. Bottom part of the card, blue and red waves, and then you can see it in the top part of the card as well. You can see them all together there. Huh. Reminds me of biorhythms. I don't know if there's any legitimacy to that idea, but it reminds me of that certainly. All right, so let's see. B, upper half of the Thoth Moon Tarot card. Let me fuel up before we continue. It's so weird how the lighting changed. I guess just because it's getting darker outside, but whatever. Upper half of the Thoth Moon Tarot card, 2 figures guarding turrets, 1 Anubis on the right, 2 Set left. Okay. So, okay, well, I'll just show the card. Anubis on the right, Set on the left. Oh, come on, dear webcam. I just want you to focus. There we go. So, what was I going to say? Oh, this explains, or this probably is referring to one of my viewers one time asked me during one of our Seth streams if Seth was like supposed to be the Egyptian Seth, and I was like, no, not to my knowledge anyway. Might be tempting to make a connection in that area, but I don't think that there is. Can this blur right itself, please? Thank you. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know. Doesn't want to focus. There we go. All right, so first of all, Anubis is a psychopomp, god of Egyptian mythology. Right off the bat, I know, because I've heard it a million times, the psychopomp is Mercury, apparently. So for what it's worth. Anubis is a psychopomp god of Egyptian mythology. A psychopomp is a deity in many religions whose responsibility is to escort newly deceased souls from Earth to the afterlife, as shown in the image below. In the Thoth Moon Tarot card, he represents a guide for souls in the dark as they pass in and out of the conscious and subconscious worlds. And you can see the image right there. All right, and it says Anubis holds the Ankh, which is a composite of Neptune, which rules Pisces, and Venus, which is exalted in Pisces. YouTube says I'm losing viewers. Oh no. Perhaps people are impatient with the technical difficulties. I'm sorry. Sorry, there's nothing more I can do about it. Why are we still blurry now? It doesn't make any sense. I have a good amount of light on me and everything. Hang on. Maybe that bit will make all the difference. Okay. Set, the figure on the left side. His facial characteristics of a narrower snout, longer neck, and larger ears. He holds the Ankh of Mercury, which is a planet in its detriment in Pisces. Mercury represents the logical mind, rational thinking, which is not really useful for gaining access to the subconscious emotions. He is known as the god of war, chaos, and is sometimes called the trickster god as he is involved in deception to achieve his goals. The moon is also attributed to deception. The subconscious is often a battleground where we are at war with ourselves, and this can come through in our dreams. All right, so let's try to unpack all this bit by bit. So let's see. So first of all, again, with Anubis on the right of the card, again, it says Anubis is a psychopomp, god of Egyptian mythology. A psychopomp is a deity in many religions whose responsibility is to escort newly deceased souls from Earth to the afterlife, as shown in the image below, and I showed that image. In the Thoth Moon Tarot card, he represents a guide for souls in the dark as they pass in and out of the conscious and subconscious worlds. So he represents a guide for souls in the dark as they pass in and out of the conscious and subconscious worlds. Anubis holds the Ankh, which is a composite of Neptune, which rules Pisces, and Venus, which is exalted in Pisces. So that is the figure on the right, yet again. Let us observe. Not again. Let's see, maybe if I do that, it'll fix it. If I hold some light on my face, will that fix it? Oh, this is insane. Try that. There we go. All right, set the figure on the left side. We're going over this again because it's deep and we need to let it sink in. So set the figure on the left side. His facial characteristics of a narrower snout, longer neck, and larger ears. He holds the Ankh of Mercury, which is a planet in its detriment in Pisces. Mercury represents the logical mind, rational thinking, which is not really useful for gaining access to the subconscious emotions. He is known as the god of war, chaos, sometimes called the trickster god, as he is involved in deception to achieve his goals. The moon is also attributed to deception. The subconscious is often a battleground where we are at war with ourselves, and this can come through in our dreams. So, again, figure on the left side is set. Yeah, and it is interesting. I mean, hopefully it was visible enough there how they're holding these differing symbols. So again, hang on. Anubis on the right is holding the Ankh, which is a composite of Neptune and Venus. And then Set is holding the Ankh of Mercury, Set on the left, which is quite clear in the card, indeed. So, hang on. And well, just for additional clarification, we'll actually, hang on. Can really see if I can get it to cooperate. Can really see what is being talked about in the symbols here below as well. Except, well, the one symbol is just a symbol of Neptune. It's not the actual symbol that that is being held. The other one's a symbol for Mercury, not Venus. So I'm actually almost unsure what they're trying to point out here, but whatever. All right. Phoenix wand, held by Set and Anubis, as is the symbol of resurrection, which happens after we conquer the demons of the subconscious. They are found extensively in the Wand's minor arcana. All right, so Phoenix wand. Oh, okay, yeah, I guess it's pretty obvious there. You can see it, this like staff-like thing that they're both holding. And again, it says Phoenix wand held by Set and Anubis, as is the symbol of resurrection, which happens after we conquer the demons of the subconscious. They are found extensively in the Wand's minor arcana. Then it says Nefesh, not sure how to say it, but the jackal representing the animal soul, survival, procreation, who devours those who ignore the warnings of Anubis. Nefesh is the part of the soul situated in Yesod and is associated with the cerebellum at the back of the head, which relates to the Hebrew letter Kaf, which we discussed earlier. So, the jackal. All right. And just to go over that one more time to make it completely clear. The jackal representing the animal's soul, survival, procreation, who devours those who ignore the warnings of Anubis. Nefesk is the part of the soul situated in Yesod and is associated with the cerebellum at the back of the head, which relates to the Hebrew letter Kaf, which we discussed earlier. So wait a minute. Now, because my brain is not wanting to work as well right now due to my exhaustion, what were the warnings of Anubis again? Or did it even say that? Doesn't seem to actually be saying what these warnings of Anubis are. I'd be interested to find that out. But anyway. Let us see what else we have here. Dripping Yods, 9 in total, the number of the 9th Sephiroth, which is ruled by the moon. They are also in the form of the Neptune glyph. Like menstrual blood, it represents the potential seed of life, sperm, which has not been fulfilled, and they are in the unfertilized womb, as we can see, made from the wave patterns around the towers. And those are pretty obvious right there. And again, it says dripping yods, 9 in total. The number of the 9th Sephiroth, which is ruled by the moon. They are also in the form of the Neptune glyph. Like menstrual blood, it represents the potential seed of life, sperm, which has not been fulfilled, and they are in the unfertilized womb, as we can see, made from the wave patterns around the towers. So interesting stuff. Crescent moon, waning moon, which is partially eclipsed by the bluish sphere, which is the Earth. Okay, and it shows it here in the article. Yeah, pretty obvious. Crescent moon, waning moon, which is partially eclipsed by the bluish sphere, which is the Earth. You know, it almost appears to be getting sunny out there, but no, it's still cloudy. In red, we see a figure resembling the Hebrew letter Kaf. Okay, so you can see that right there, that Hebrew letter Kaf. Let me use both hands. Maybe I can hold this more still and it will focus. Okay, and then there it is in that part of the moon card. Kaf is associated with Jupiter in the Wheel of Fortune card. Jupiter equals good fortune, wisdom, optimism, broadening of one's horizon. Since the letter Kaf is on the blue sphere eclipsing the moon, here we have a positive influence, finally, within the card, as the energy of the moon is overcome by the insights gained from delving into the subconscious and conquering our demons and pressured thoughts / emotions. And isn't it interesting, ladies and gentlemen, like I said earlier about Jupiter and Neptune? Jupiter is all about expansion, but it's within the orbit of Saturn. Jupiter cannot expand past the limit of Saturn. Neptune, in many ways, is like Jupiter without the limitation of Saturn. And here we have in the moon card all about that Neptunian energy, an apparent reference to Jupiter. It's saying this letter Kaf. Yes, Kaf. is associated with Jupiter and also the Wheel of Fortune card. And interesting how it's sort of over the part of it, the part of what is visible in that sphere that is the Earth. So interesting stuff. Star to Moon transition. Transition of the Fool between the Star and Thoth Moon tarot card. Actually, wait a minute. For what it's worth, here's the Wheel of Fortune that I showed earlier with the Jupiter connection. And here is the Star to Moon transition image. And it says, summary of the transition. This transition is about escaping from lower mind and using the insight we have gained from the flow of spirituality and the star to sort out what is helping and what is hindering us in lower mind, to see, accept, and perhaps transform aspects of our psyche or mind and not be dragged down into it by the attachments that still exist there. Okay, so now we're really starting to get to the bottom of what this card is all about. So let's go over this again. So this transition is about escaping from lower mind and using the insight we have gained from the flow of spirituality and the star to sort out what is helping and what is hindering us in lower mind, to see, accept, and perhaps transform aspects of our psyche or mind and not be dragged down into it by the attachments that still exist there. Which is still funny though, because it is still a theme that we have seen. You know, we had it in Temperance, we had it in the Tower, we had it in the Star, we perhaps even had it in other cards. And here it is again in the Moon in yet another form. It's interesting, you know, this constant like reference to alchemy and taking the light of one's awareness into the shadow aspect of the psyche to transform it. Like it just keeps happening over and over and over again. And I wouldn't be surprised based on the planetary rulerships if we encounter it again in the Judgment/Eon card 2 weeks from now. But anyway, let's see here. Relevance to the path. Yes, the path. A limited sense of who we are as a person or of what we are capable of as a spiritual seeker can hold us back from growing into a clear, expressive channel for spiritual insight and realization. It may also be just too small to cope with the new awareness of who we are that we should be discovering in meditation. We need to free ourselves of a limited view of self that is based on attachment. I can almost swear the sun's coming out. It keeps getting brighter. The decisions that we made earlier in life about how we want to be and to see ourselves and how we want others to see us may again have been useful in the past, but they may not be appropriate for an initiate. Initiation gives an opportunity to break free from outdated concepts, thinking, and being. To carry the state of enlightenment and teach others, so we may need to change how we think of ourselves, of others, of the world, and of life. The moon represents the process of transforming our sense of self by facing up to what we think we are and escaping from its limitations. Well, there you go. Neptune outside the limits of Saturn. So I know that's all a lot to take in, as is so often the case in this article. So yes, we're going to go back over it one more time. Both of those paragraphs. Relevance to the path. A limited sense of who we are as a person or of what we are capable of as a spiritual seeker can hold us back from growing into a clear, expressive channel for spiritual insight and realization. It may also be just too small to cope with the new awareness of who we are that we should be discovering in meditation. We need to free ourselves of a limited view of self that is based on attachment. The decisions that we made earlier in life about how we want to be and to see ourselves and how we want others to see us may again have been useful in the past, but they may not be appropriate for an initiate. See, how we want to be and to see ourselves, how we want others to see us may have been useful in the past, may not be appropriate for an initiate. So the ego, essentially. The ego is like, oh, I will be seen in this way and other people, or I'll see other people this way, that kind of stuff. Initiation gives an opportunity to break free from outdated concepts, thinking, and being. To carry the state of enlightenment and teach others, we may need to change how we think of ourselves, of others, of the world, and of life. The moon represents the process of transforming our sense of self by facing up to what we think we are and escaping from its limitations. So, okay, just those last two sentences again, because this is like the really important part. So to carry the state of enlightenment and teach others, we may need to change how we think of ourselves, of others, of the world, and of life. To carry the state of enlightenment, we may need to change how we think of these various things. The moon represents the process of transforming our sense of self by facing up to what we think we are and escaping from its limitations. Again, though, it's just so strange because I almost feel like we read those exact words in a previous card not too long ago. But maybe it's meant to be like that. Difficulties in attempting this transition. This transition is again about applying oneself to the process as well as learning from the process. Thinking. The seeker may think too much in meditation. They may not understand the requirements and principles behind the path. They may have the wrong ideas about what is done and why. Although it can be useful to have a goal in mind, we all have the wrong idea of what enlightenment is because enlightenment is not an idea. Conversely, an initiate may get bogged down or stuck in trying to understand the path rather than actually practicing and following it. An initiate may not use the support of adepts and other initiates to reflect on their progress or direction. All right, so I'm going to I'm going to say something right now that may be extremely shocking and mentally catastrophic in a sense, or mind-blowing in quite the powerful way to those who end up watching this and anyone watching now. And that is that, just to clarify my position personally, as much as I love tarot and astrology, and as much as I have an absolute complete and total reverence for these cards and for astrology as well, I do have to still say, just because I'm studying this and even like exploring these ideas on these live streams does not mean I am automatically considering myself an advocate of or a participant of the particular kind of path that is being delineated in some of the sources that we come across here, particularly what we see like with this Thoth information. I mean, I don't know, like I would need to think about it more or maybe feel about it more or something to really clarify my position on it. But I just want to remind people, I'm not like sitting here reading this being like, oh yes, I'm on the path as described by this. No, actually, not really. I mean, maybe I am and don't realize it, but I'm not coming at it from that angle is what I'm wanting to remind people. We're simply exploring these ideas to understand these cards more deeply because I've recognized that that is a very valuable thing, regardless of what path you may or may not be on, you know, or to really be more basic about it. It's because this excites me. I'm doing what excites me. Like, I have mixed feelings about this idea of being on the path, in all honesty. I really do. I have mixed feelings about it. You know, I don't know if it's for me entirely. I don't. Spirituality is definitely for me. I'm pretty damn sure about that, or at least some form of spirituality. But I'm not sure if spirituality, as it is described by some of the sources we get into, is quite what I am an advocate of personally. And I'm not afraid to say that. That's why I always say, or almost always say at the beginning of these streams, this is my coming into this with my own perspective. This is not like my trying to rehash something that other people have said. I don't belong to any organizations or anything like that. Like, this is all my perspective. And like, it's certainly interesting. And maybe at some point I will say, yeah, I am on this path as it is described here and perhaps elsewhere. But as of now, no, actually. Like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I would even entirely want to transform or negate or whatever my ego in the way that so many of these sources seem to talk about. I have mixed feelings about that. A lot of people have mixed feelings about that, even other strong advocates of tarot. So I don't know. I'm just wanting to clarify that, this is not, God, how do I find the right words? You're not listening to the author of this article talk about the moon card or any of these cards in any of these tarot card analysis live streams that I'm doing. You're listening to me, Poetic Heretic, talk about these cards, So we're analyzing this. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily an advocate of it. I would need to, at this point, even after all the study we've done, I would still need to know more about it to clarify my personal position on it. But anyway, because it could turn out to be the case at the end of the day that I am actually somewhat almost opposed to some of these spiritual ideas. That could end up being the reality. Like, that's something that I almost intuitively sense at times, that what I represent and advocate for is not 100% compatible with what a lot of these tarot experts advocate for, or at least the sources that we find for this stuff. I don't think we're fully compatible, if you really want the honest truth. But it still doesn't mean it can't be useful, though. To me, it's highly useful to me. I mean, my God, these cards are amazing. And I think that in the same way that they can be useful to me, even if I'm not 100% on board with some of these ideas or whatever, they can be useful to other people too, who maybe aren't sure if they're 100% on board with some of these ideas of the path or whatever. I'll put it to you this way. I'll leave this part of the discussion with this final remark. My ultimate goal with spirituality, even when it comes to being authentic, even when it comes to doing shadow work, even when it comes to facing things that are uncomfortable to face, is ultimately for the reason of, as I always say, feeling good. That's my goal. I'm not trying to be like noble or something. So there it is. Hopefully that conveys what I'm trying to express. It's hard to find the exact right words for it. But anyway, let's just continue. Sense of self. It can be difficult to let go of and change our sense of who we are when there's a typo here. It has been, I think it's supposed to say when it has been what we have held on to and based our life around. It can be a difficult process to achieve, to use our conscious mind as a tool to change our subconscious mind, using a part of our mind to change another part of our mind. This is why using meditation to lift us out of our thoughts is so essential to see and overcome ingrained mental patterns and ideas. Yeah. The funny thing is, so much of what we read, I do end up agreeing with, though. It's like, oh yeah, I do that, or that sounds good to me, or whatever. So don't think I'm opposed to this either, or like, oh, so opposed to it or anything. Most of it I'm all for. We may also try to create and become an idealized version of a spiritual seeker and deny negative thoughts and what is going on in our minds, again, creating a mask and reinforcing a false sense of self rather than integrating all aspects of ourselves into a whole. Holy shit, that is a huge issue that people have on a spiritual path. I definitely agree with that, with what I just read. Let me read it again. We may also try to create and become an idealized version of a spiritual seeker and deny negative thoughts and what is going on in our minds, again, creating a mask and reinforcing a false sense of self rather than integrating all aspects of ourselves into a whole. Yeah. If you just try to like pretend to be what you think is spiritual, it's going to backfire. I can tell you right now. I can tell you right now, because I've had enough years of experience with this stuff. Like, what you really want to do is own everything that you are and everything that is going on in your mind. Like, don't try to pretend like you're something you're not when it comes to spirituality. Like, don't try to pretend that your every thought is positive when that's not the reality. It will backfire. And why does it backfire? Because in doing so, that's an act of trying to suppress the negative thoughts. Well, suppression is resistance. And what you resist persists, as Carl Jung said. And here's the thing, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Resistance to resistance is still resistance. So you have to learn how to allow these things, essentially. So let's see, let's continue. We may become very attached to our identity and deny the need for change and growth. Or conversely, we may try to change too much too soon and lose our mental stability. Yeah, holy shit. That can be an issue too. You should never rush yourself with spirituality. That's another piece of advice I have after the craziness I've been through with it for years and years. Like, ideally, you should never try to rush yourself with spirituality. Just like take it like one step at a time. Like, it's not even about rushing anyway. Like, if you're like, if you're in some big hurry to get to enlightenment or whatever, then you're missing the point. That's most likely just the ego thinking that it needs this, what it thinks of as enlightenment. It doesn't even understand enlightenment, but what it thinks of as enlightenment thinks it needs it for some reason, like to feel satisfied or fulfilled or whatever. Like, if you're in some big rush in spirituality, you're missing the point. Like, just be easy about it. Take it one step at a time and realize every step is an important part of the process. It's like, God, how do I find the right words for this? The journey is the very idea. That's why we have 22 cards of the major arcana and not just one card or two or something. So I hope that clarified it. Someone left. I guess they didn't like my discussion. Well, I'm sorry. I can't always figure out what the best words are for this stuff right away. And I'm running on half an hour of sleep. All right, so wait, where the hell were we? Oh, okay, I see where we are. Practical advice on making this transition. The transition is much easier to make if the seeker uses the insight and wisdom provided by the previous stage of the star to make the right decisions and choices. New, positive, creative thinking and an open and flexible sense of who we are most easily and genuinely created by using insight and acceptance of what and how we are now, developing our strengths and also accepting and, where possible, transforming our weaknesses rather than trying to create a completely new identity from scratch. I know that's complicated, so we'll go back over it again. New, positive, creative thinking and an open and flexible sense of who we are most easily and genuinely created by using insight and acceptance of what and how we are now. Developing our strengths and also accepting and, where possible, transforming our weaknesses rather than trying to create a completely new identity from scratch. Transforming our weaknesses rather than trying to create a completely new identity from scratch. Yeah, that's really good advice. I don't know. I feel like there have been times in my spiritual journey where I've been so consumed by new ideas, and I've experienced like what appeared to be at least a powerful awakening that, because I didn't know any better, I tried immediately, or I just automatically started generating this new identity until eventually my real identity had an issue with that. And then I had to learn how to reintegrate. I had to learn how to integrate all that stuff. But yeah, like, kind of goes back to what we were just saying. Like, don't try to just pretend like you're this enlightened person when you're not. You have to be who you are. You're not actually making any real spiritual progress. But I almost saw it as an aspect of defiance or something, though, before too, now that I really think about it. Like, I almost saw it as an aspect of defiance, trying to like formulate a whole new identity based on the perfection of spirituality. This was years ago, but I'm just remembering. So could that be another deception that we see with the moon card? Apparently it could be. I have such an affinity for defiance. I have to be careful that I'm defying the right things. Meditate is meditation. Do not think. And do not think more when you find yourself thinking. What does that even mean? Maybe they meant to say meditation is meditation. Do not think. And do not think more when you find yourself thinking. My recommendation when engaged in meditation to stop thought is to focus on perhaps a sound that is very simple, like the sound of an air conditioner or something like that, the hum of a computer perhaps. Just try to isolate that. That'll stop thought, or at least all thoughts, but that of the sound. You could focus on your breathing. You could maybe even repeat like a mantra or whatever in your head. There's some different things you can do to make that easier. Try activities you have not done before. Put yourself into different situations. Interact with a variety of people to push your boundaries and sense of who you are while still holding to the principles of the path. Remember to again always look beyond mind to see the potential of spirituality in everyone. Continue to remember that any fulfillment that can be found in new thinking or sense of self is short-lived and a poor comparison to what can be found in meditation and finding our true self. So continue to remember that any fulfillment that can be found in new thinking or sense of self is short-lived and a poor comparison to what can be found in meditation and finding our true self. So again, talking more about that idea of like generating a new sort of false self based on an idea of, I guess, spiritual perfection, and is saying that is short-lived and a poor comparison to what can be found in meditation and finding our true self, which I basically agree with, though I don't know if you necessarily need meditation in every case to do it, though meditation is an excellent tool. My God. Meditation might be one of the best tools ever, in fact. But yeah, I do agree, even with my position of my ultimate goal, my ultimate one and only motivation ever being to feel good, to feel as good as I possibly can feel, I still agree that the best way even to get to accomplish that goal is, from my experience, to integrate yourself, to be an integrated being, to try to be your true self, get in touch with your true self to the best of your ability. I understand that can be very challenging, especially when so many of us have opposing aspects within us. We're all essentially very split, some people more than others, and we have conflicting needs and stuff like that. I know it can be challenging, but nevertheless, that is the work. That is the spiritual work. And so it's kind of ironic because I don't know. I guess I could be wrong, but I get the sense from a lot of these sources that the end goal of what they're referencing as spirituality, or their version of spirituality, including that of this website, is something other than to feel good. Maybe it's the desire to simply know oneself. And yet it still applies. Like what they're saying about, like, you have to know your true self in order to, well, how did they put it? Hang on. To basically have true fulfillment. It still applies even for someone such as I, whose ultimate underlying motivation is to feel good. So it's funny, apparently two different forms of spirituality, and yet the results are the same. You have to be a person of integrity. You have to get to know who you are, essentially. It's kind of ironic almost. Thoth Star Tarot Card Divinatory Meanings. The divinatory meanings of the Thoth Moon Tarot card can be somewhat negative, but we have to take a constructive way of dealing with the moon if it appears in our reading. It is bringing to our attention the need to deal with negative or destructive subconscious patterns, and therefore, by appearing in a spread, we have the chance to release this energy which has been holding us back from realizing our potential. Upright. 1. Suggest a time when something in your life is not as it appears to be. A situation that is deceiving. 2. You may have lost your way in life and unsure about the future and which direction to take, like being lost in the dark without signposts. 3. The moon often represents your shadow self, a term coined by Jung to represent our subconscious or hidden self. This is harboring negativity which we may have suppressed or are not aware of. We need to release this destructive energy through in some way, such as spending time with friends, counseling, therapies, meeting new people in a positive environment to refresh our lives. Again, I don't know if it's supposed to say through some way or in some way. There's occasional typos or whatever on this site. 4. Traumatic dreams. 5. Feelings from childhood or that have been repressed are having a negative impact on a current situation. 6. The moon tends to show up what we generally ignore, refuse to see, or even deny, but the step has to be taken, for without facing up to the darkness, our path to the light will be that much harder. Reversed. 1. Generally, a reversed moon indicates the above, but over a much longer time period and or intensity, so that these energies have become much more ingrained. 2. A struggle over years with periods of depression and feeling life has become meaningless. 3. The infertile womb in the Thoth card signifies personal crisis, severe depression. 4. Psychiatric disorders, a stay in a mental health hospital. Okay. Thoth Moon Tarot card in the Celtic Cross spread. Wait 1 second. Okay. So, as usual, I will show this is the version of the Celtic Cross spread that they are presenting for this card. Don't know if it's going to focus for us or not. Maybe if I get a bit closer, hold the tablet more still. There we go. As I have reminded people before, there are different versions of the Celtic cross spread, and different readers can find the kind that work for them. I personally use a version that is probably quite different from the version that we see here. So, basically, this is what does the Thoth Moon tarot card mean when it appears in the various positions of this particular kind of Celtic cross spread. So, if it appears in position 1, the heart of the situation, it could mean the way to moving our life forward to acknowledge that we have suppressed things in our subconscious which needs releasing. If it appears in position 2, possible obstacle, it could mean a situation in which you are being deceived. If it appears in position 3, subconscious influence, persistent dreams which are traumatic relating to difficult life experiences. If it appears in position 4, the past, previous issues with mental health or addiction. If it appears in position 5, hopes and goals, to become a stronger, more balanced person free from past trauma. If it appears in position 6, immediate future, working on that which you have been avoiding and dealing with. If it appears in position 7, self-image, reflective but often find that you lose your way in life and get trapped in things from the past which are difficult to resolve. If it appears in position 8, environment, not supportive. At worst, you have people around you with various issues of addiction, either physical or psychological. Difficulty seeing where authenticity lies. If it appears in position 9, guidance and warning. Unless you resolve things from the past, you will always be held up in the present. It does not mean that every last detail has to be dealt with, but more of a balance has to be addressed. If it appears in position 10, overall outcome, you have looked deep within yourself and resolved the things which have held you back for so long. This may relate to childhood trauma, experiences as an adult, or both. This inner work allows you a freedom to move your life in a positive direction for yourself and others. All right, so that at long last concludes the esotericmeanings.com thorough article on the Thoth moon card. So perfect timing because I've only got 4 minutes left before I have to go have my lunch break. Then I will come back in about an hour and a half or so with part 2, where we will dive even deeper into the moon card, both the Rider-Waite's and Crowley-Thoth versions. So that will be fun. We'll look at some additional deep sources and maybe a couple more surfacey meanings too if we have time. Want to thank everyone for being here, and for those that watch in the future when this is not live. Want to remind people that I'll be back, of course, on Monday with another Seth stream analyzing the nature of personal reality. I'll be back on Wednesday. We are most likely going to look at the implications of Uranus entering the sign of Taurus, which happens on that very day, appropriately enough. Funny that it would be timed that way. And if by some miracle I have enough energy later on tonight, I'll do some live tarot readings for donations, but I don't know if I will because I got very little sleep. Maybe I can take a nap or something and then give people tarot readings if anyone's interested in that. If not, then, well, I'm sure on Monday or Wednesday at the latest, I'll be able to do that for people, because I know people always like that. They want information. They have questions. You have questions. I've got answers. You want information. I've got information, as long as you've got the donation. So again, I'm Poetic Heretic. I'll be back in about an hour and a half with part 2 of my moon card analysis. So please do join me. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you there, and bye for now.